Hey guys, good to be with you again this evening as we look at the second part of the building of Moses' tabernacle. Now last week we looked at the pattern and the prophetic statement, the prophetic nature of the tabernacle that he built. And last week we looked at really just one aspect of it, which is the fact that he built a literal tabernacle, which is a picture of the church. Now, the New Testament speaks about this tabernacle in two ways. It presents the tabernacle of Moses as having two pictures. And the first one, as we looked at last week, is the church. And so in Hebrews 3 verse 5, it says, Moses was faithful as a servant in God's house. Verse 6 says, but Christ is faithful as the son over God's house, the servant in and the son over God's house. And then it goes on and it says, and we, talking about believers, the church, are that house. So there is very clearly a picture presented to us that tabernacle was a picture of the church, and it needs to be made according to pattern. We looked at that last week. But there is another prophetic picture in the tabernacle, and it points to heaven. And so in Hebrews chapter 8 verse 5, it says, they serve at a sanctuary. Now that sanctuary was the sanctuary of Moses, referring to the priests. They serve at a sanctuary that is a copy and a shadow of what is in heaven. So this tabernacle that Moses built was a picture of the church and a picture of heaven. We don't have time to go into all the details of that, but essentially the structure is, and the indwelling of God's glory is a picture of God's Spirit within His church, and the presentation of the blood, the coming into the presence of God with blood that atones, is a picture of Jesus coming into heaven itself with His own blood as atoning blood. So that was last week. We looked at the pattern and the prophetic nature. This evening, in looking at the building, we're going to look at our participation. There is a beautiful picture presented in from chapters 25 through to chapter 40, excluding the few chapters which I think is 34, 35, with the golden calf incident, of this actual building that took place and the participation. And participation was around giving. Now please, just don't think, oh, it's talking about money. Let's look at this story. Let's look at this event and see what it teaches us about giving, because I think it speaks about giving in three areas. First of all, it talks about a giving heart. Then it talks about the giving of resources. And then it talks about the giving of time and of skill. Let me say that again. A giving heart, the giving of resources, and the giving of time and skill. And it happens in that order. Certainly the number one is the number one. So in Exodus 25, when Moses is up the mountain and God speaks to him, he says, tell the Israelites to bring me an offering, everyone whose heart prompts him. Then if we go through to where the offering, so in chapter 25, he's told about the offering. That offering then takes place in Exodus chapter 35. There's 10 chapters in between. And when this offering now takes place, or when it begins, it says this, chapter 35, verse 4, Moses said to the whole Israelite community. So it wasn't just a select few. He says to the entire community, this is what the Lord has commanded. From what you have, take an offering for the Lord, everyone whose heart is willing. Verse 20 says, then the whole Israelite community withdrew from Moses' presence, and everyone who was willing and whose heart moved them. The second thing that happened was the giving of resources. And so it says in Exodus chapter 35, verse 22, after the people had left Moses' presence and allowed the Spirit of God to speak to their hearts, and their hearts were moved, it says, all who were willing, men and women alike, came and brought gold and jewelry of all kinds, brooches, earrings, rings, ornaments. They presented their gold as a wave offering. Now, I don't know if this picture gets you like it gets me. They were instructed to bring 4 different varieties of resources. Like when we have an offering these days, it's generally bring money or bring food and bring clothing. It's like that. But for them, there were 4 different things. And the first was gold and jewelry, which is basically small little things of high value. And then they were told to bring material, whether it was leather or linen or cloth. And then they were told to bring bronze and silver. And then they were told to bring wood. Now, what's interesting for me about those things is that they get heavier and heavier weight-wise. I mean, it's quite logical. The guy's got a little earring, or he's got a 6-meter cedar plank. But when they brought the gold and the silver, they were to present it to God as a wave offering. So they're holding their treasures, and they're waving them. Now, obviously, they can't wave a 6-meter cedar plank was that hit somebody on the head. But they're holding their gold. Can you picture it? That when they wave, Lord, this is yours. That's the picture of it. Lord, this is yours. And so with our resources, with our stuff, it's like, here, oh God, this is yours. Our hearts have been moved. And now we present this to you. This is yours. In 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 24, and that's how I always manage to remember it, 2 Samuel 24:24. David is wanting to purchase a piece of ground to build the tabernacle that eventually became the ground where Solomon built the tabernacle. And he goes to the man who owns it, whose name is Orana, I'm not too sure how you pronounce it. And he says to this man, I want to buy your piece of land. Now remember that David is the king. He's an honored man. And so the guy says to him, no, please, just have it. It's yours. David says, no, tell me the price I want to pay for it. The man insists, no, it's yours. David replies, verse 24 says this, I will not offer to the Lord that which costs me nothing. The Message says, I will not bring a sacrifice that is not a sacrifice. Isn't that just so beautiful? I'm not going to give to God anything that hasn't cost me. Friends, it's never convenient to give. It's never easy to give. I'm talking about godly kind of giving. And whenever we are giving to something else, our own needs somehow will always be highlighted. And yet, dear friends, it is really important to give, and to give of our resources. I just want to ask this question. When you give, who are you giving for? Why is it really important that in whatever project you're involved in, whatever season the church is going through, why is it important for you to give? I mean, you could have different responses to this. You can say, well, my contribution doesn't make any difference, really. I've only got 100 rand, and somebody else has put in 1,000,000 rand. What difference does my 100 rand make? Well, it might. Let's be honest. It might not make a huge difference to the building project, but it makes a huge difference to God. And friends, it makes a huge difference to you. And most of the offerings recorded in the New Testament, where the amount is recorded, it's little. We have no idea how much Barnabas sold his field for in Acts chapter 5. He gave all the money, but we don't know how much he sold it for. Presumably it was, a piece of land is a piece of land. It's worth something. But the little boy who gave his 5 loaves and his 2 fish, that little amount, he must have thought, what on earth what difference is this going to make? The woman in Luke chapter 19 who bought her 2 little gold coins, what difference is this going to make? Jesus looks at her, says to the disciples, she's given more than all the others. See, it's not, we don't look at giving through natural eyes. Your giving, your contribution, don't look at it and say this will make no difference. It makes a difference to God. By the way, friends, it makes a difference to your eternity, because we are rewarded in heaven for what we sow here on earth. The other thing that we can do is that we can basically look at a project and say, well, I've given my share. I gave that amount. So we need 1,000,000 rand and there's 100 people. That's like 10,000 rand each. I've done my share. Friends, we've never done our share. Giving is always about, Lord, this is yours. Lord, this is yours. So I want to encourage you, friends. It's important for us to give. And the third thing that they gave was they gave all their skill and time. And let me just say a few things about this because it's such a beautiful story. There's a little phrase that is repeated from 36 to 40, those chapters, which says, then they made. Now, Moses is accredited with building the tabernacle, as Jesus is accredited with building the church. But there's this participation of a massive volunteer base. Hope you get that. There was literally thousands of people, old and young, men and women, grannies and grandpas and young people who came and gave their skill and time. And friends, the church at this stage, whether it's our site or One Life Church or whatever church you belong to, the need for this volunteer army is huge. Friends, when I look at it like this, the mandate of the church is to be a caring family and a saving army. You get that? A caring family and a saving army. And if we are going to fulfill both of these two mandates, these two functions, these two purposes of the church, caring family and saving army, it is built on a massive army, family of people who have volunteering has gripped their inside, and they are bringing of their skill and they are bringing of their time. And by the way, your skill is not just what you're good at. Your skill is what you could be good at. Please hear that. And there's a beautiful story in this in this building project where the Lord brought two men, Bezalel and Aholiab, who were there to train people and help them develop their skill. And may I say, particularly as leaders, you are a Bezalel and an Aholiab placed there by God to help others find and develop and grow in their skill. And God has placed Bezalels and Aholiabs within the church to help us and to call us and to mobilize us and to upskill us in our volunteering. Do you know the name Bezalel means the shadow of God, and the name Aholiab means the tent of God? Beautiful names. So I don't have time to go into this, but just think about these two men. These two men who were skilled and able to nurture and evoke the skill in others. It says they were anointed by the Spirit, and they lived under the shadow of God and under the tent of the Father. Say that again, friends. Anointed by the Spirit, under the shadow of God, and under the tent of the Father. You know what that says to me about all skill and about all time and about all effort and about all in gifting when it comes to things regarding the church, regarding the kingdom of God, is that these gifts and these skills are born, they are nurtured, they are developed, they are strengthened, they are empowered, they are motivated in this place of anointed by the Spirit, under the shadow of God, under the tent of the Father. That's, friends, where we're completely different to any movement, any structure, any project that is non-Christian, that is worldly, is that our fire, our motivation, our reason for doing it is anointed by the Spirit. The fact that we live under His shadow and we dwell in the tent of the Father. So I hope this helps you. I hope this moves you, not just motivates you, but moves you and changes you. This wonderful picture in Exodus 36 of a generous people whose hearts are generous, who are generous with their stuff, and who are generous with their time and their skill, and willing to have that skill developed. It's like, here we are, Lord. Here I am, Lord. Take me, develop me, grow me, use me, anoint me. I'm yours. Thanks for listening, guys.